to the launch party of Cosmos Co-op. Yeah, so I just wanted to share a couple words really about what that is, because it's this incredible project that Marco has been working on since 2016. And I'm just delighted to be a part of it tonight as a collaborator, as an author. Just feel delighted to be a part of Cosmos Co-op. It is this incredible publishing platform, but what's really revolutionary about it is that it's a cooperative model. And I just think that it is a really special way to organize. It's about benefiting all people, all artists, all participants, all members. So another thing that I want to share is really some of the key things that Cosmos aims to do and why we're here tonight. And that is to educate, to inspire, and to collaborate. So that's part of what community building is. This part is the collaboration part, the inspiring part, the educating part. So thank you all for being here. And warm round of applause for yourselves too. Because would it be possible without you? I am Ellie. I will be your guide through this journey tonight. And it's going to be a really magical one, really inspirational one. So I'm here with you on that journey. Our amazing performers are also taking you on that journey. So there are a few things that I want to do to orient you to the space itself. First of all, just remember to turn off the cell phones, and if you haven't done that already. And another piece is the bathrooms are down the hall, downstairs, and you'll see the men's bathroom and the women's bathroom just a little farther along on your right. Also a big thank you to Longmont Public Media for hosting us tonight. All of these incredible volunteers. Yes, applause for Longmont Public Media because they are amazing. They are volunteering their time and the space to make this happen, and we are just so grateful for them. So thank you. Thank you to the performers also for their magic on this journey with us. And another just, pass for the thank you for the audience. Because art really, to be most effective, right, needs a sacred witness. And that's what you're providing here tonight. It's a really sacred, beautiful witness to what the performers are just offering with their hearts, with their spirits, with their talent. And so it's just in that reciprocity, something magical happens. So without further ado, I would like to move us into Sheela and Elden, and who are both internationally acclaimed artists, and we are so excited about that. Thank you, Sheela.
So thank you so much, Ellie, for that introduction, and welcome again to the launch of Cosmos Co-op. I also want to thank Marco for inviting us to open the evening. It's definitely an honor. So we're going to begin by sharing an invocation. So this is an invocation in Sanskrit, and it's to the goddess Saraswati. So as you might know, this goddess is the goddess of all of the art forms, music and poetry and writing, and also of creative flow. And so in this invocation, we're praising her and also asking her to bestow us with her powers of intuition and of self-wisdom, and also of all of the art forms. शङ्कर प्रभृतिभिर्देवैः सुधा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्या She heard a voice inside when the wind was still in the night, when all was dark and quiet. This voice it spoke to her in an ancient tongue, a code that she could not decipher. And every night she'd rise and sing with no idea what those words might mean, but she knew what to do. So she sang, as she sang she flew far from the world she knew, to a place where everything was light. She'll have no memories of the things she sees when she awakes, touched by morning's light. And every night she'd rise and sing with no idea what those words might mean. Every night she'd rise and sing with no idea what those words might mean, but she knew what to do. So she sang, Re-ga-ma pa ma ga, ga-ma pa da da pa ma, ma ga re sa ni sa, sa ni pa ni sa re ga ga re ma re pa, ma pa da da sa ni da pa ma ga re sa ni pa. She flew as she said. As she flew and sang those strange songs, words they rang in her ears, and the light was white and blinding. Call it a dream she might, but it came every night. So to her, the waking dream was real. Every night she lies and sings with no idea what those words might be. Every night she lies and sings with no idea what those words might be. But she knew what to do. So she sang. She knew what to do. So she sang. She sang. That was a song called She Sang that was written by a very dear friend of mine named Clinton Patterson.
For you, Sheela.
That's true. It was a dear friend who wrote it for me to sing. Yeah. Very special. I think you might recognize this next one.
our next performer. Ben is going to share with us what Marco has lovingly dubbed his mind jazz. And he is accompanied by Sheela and Elden. And it's an exploration of countercultural lineage. And really, it's furthering what we just, we're discussing about this countercultural lineage in the place of cosmos cooperative and all of its gift in that lineage. So give it up for Ben, please.
So wonderful to be with you all, and thank you to Sheela and Elden for joining me for this, what Marco dubbed Mind Jazz. Shantideva begins his Mahayana masterpiece, the Bodhicharyavatara, with this caveat. Nahi kimchit apurva matra vacham nacha sangratana kaushalam mamasti. Ata eva name parartha chinta swamano vasi tum kritam mayedam. Surely nothing new is taught here. And I have no special skill in literary composition. For precisely this reason, I don't imagine this will benefit others. This text is written only to perfume my own mind. Hello, my fellow celebrants. Marco asked me to trace a countercultural lineage for a cooperative whose circumference is coterminous with the cosmos. A dream transfusion from the community breast. In the opening Sanskrit verse just recited, Shantideva seeks to perfume his own mind. The verb perfume is related to a Sanskrit noun, vasana, which means impressions, cadences, waves of the past, memories, recursive visions. This evening is a launch, a birth of the cosmic. But it's also a crest in a series of waves of visionary poetics, cosmic consciousness, philosophy as art, and an appreciation for the ironies that only the mind of God could concoct. This riff traces a few waves focusing specifically on the countercultural lineages of the Cosmos Cooperative, but it's also about us. Terre Desjardins, the French Jesuit priest and paleontologist, suggests that more than individuals, we are transmissions. The very idea of an individual has a history. And we as individuals are actually discrete movements of a cosmic symphony, a jam session, like the chatter of so many birds. Remembering and retracing our countercultural lineages invites us to perceive ourselves in this way. And what's more, we can participate in an extraordinarily deeply probing dialogue. We're prompted to become involved in a multicultural, transgenerational process. Co-creatively moving with a mosaic of lineages allows us to empathize with the creative lives, passions, ideals, and sacrifices of early lineage holders. It opens the vault to a horizonless vista of imagination. The poet and ecologist who I love, Gary Snyder, envisions a taproot reaching down into a great subculture that spans all the way back to the late Paleolithic era. a subcultural aquifer that periodically surges with waters that renew life across traditions, cultures, and spaces. Gary is curious about our longing for golden ages. Times when there was much more singing and dancing. He looks to medieval heresies like the Brotherhood of the Free Spirit, who experienced God immanent in everything, whom the Inquisition charged not with witchcraft, but with the strangely beautiful notion that human beings are divine. Gary looks out to Lao Tzu. He looks to the tantras of India and Tibet. He surmises that there have always been groups who live by mutual illumination, having seen themselves as of one mind, one flesh, with the single eye that the English ranters speak about. Ezra Pound shared with Allen Ginsberg, who shared with the local poet, Jim Cohn, who shared with me, about golden ages of poetry and how they come about. Check it out. When traditional academic formal language is hit with the vernacular, the street language of the people, the folk, the subaltern, when the subcultural language busted through official discourse, made up of concretized worldviews in credo language, that led to poetry that is more timeless. That led to poetry that is for future generations. Tracing a countercultural lineage for a cooperative whose circumference is coterminous with the cosmos. When did we forget that we are a part of lineages? Modernity, the great shattering, the unearthing. The new human. Let's collect the seeds or the seedlings of lineages, large and lost, of life's comedies and their not so rare bedfellow, the tragic. We will have to jump, my friends, across chasms and fissures. Let's imagine lineages, and more importantly, let's allow ourselves to be imagined by them. And who are we but transmissions? Thank you, Teilhard. Pache, the materialists. Who are we but transmissions? Sparks in the mind of the goddess, consciousness. Swimming in lineages and dissolving into them. It feels so good to disappear. For me, there is no bondage, nor liberation. These are merely concepts with which people like to frighten themselves. This world is a reflection in the universal mind, like the sun shimmering in the water. The more we learn about history, human artifacts, Paleolithic game drive walls just above us in the Indian peaks, the diffusion and migration of peoples, the metabolism of ideas, the continental drift of concepts, the gestation of classical cultures. The more we learn, the more we say, hey, thank you for this chance. Even if it's just a few wobbly rotations around the morning star, even if it all collapses except for the morning dew, shining like the diamond dust of a meteoric impact. Let the flames of universal disillusion rain down on all sides. In the powerful wind's gust, let the oceans swell and converge into one. And the suns blaze powerfully all at once. Be free of fear, let go of all stories. As the sky of consciousness, you have nothing to lose. Do not uselessly wander one step further into the limited mind. That's the only source of destruction. Brothers, sisters, friends, I call on a lineage right now. The lineage of cunning. What they call jugaar in Hindi. Odysseus, the polytropous man. Crafty, and yes, complicated. Less Proust, more Mallarmé, the spirit of the late great Phil Lesh compels us. Un coup de dés jamais n'abolira le hasard. A throw of the dice will never abolish chance. Published in a May 1897 issue in the journal Cosmopolis, a proto-metapsychosis, the dice is always dicey. To wit, Mallarmé tells us, a throw of the dice will never abolish chance, even when thrown under eternal circumstances from the bottom of a shipwreck. Not a bad metaphor for our times. Kali Yuga, the age of the losing dice. Every thought issues a throw of the dice. Once again, Mallarmé. And as Grateful Dead roadies know all too well, the situation is boss. Merry pranksters freewheeling into infinity, tinkering with their soft machine, casting the yarrow stalks, banking on synchronicity.
Let the flames of universal disillusion rain down on all sides. In the powerful wind's gust, let the oceans swell and converge into one. And the suns blaze powerfully all at once. Be free of fear, let go of all stories. As the sky of consciousness, you have nothing to lose. Do not uselessly wander one step further into the limited mind. That's the only source of destruction.
कुलेषु जडवच्चरे वदेदुन्मत्तवद्विद्वान् कुलयोगी महेश्वरी मुक्तोऽपि बालवत्क्रीडेत् कुलेषु जडवच्छरेत् वदेदुन्मत्तवद्विद्वान् कुलयोगी महेश्वरी.
Even if liberated, O goddess, the wise yogi should play like a child, act the fool, and speak as if intoxicated. For those of us who have pursued lives of art, of music, or maybe getting lost in archives of medieval texts, for my part, or maybe a monastic or ashram life wholly given over to the spirit, we are like so many salmon swimming upstream, gambling on what moves us to the core, taking real risk, and never quite sure if we might be ripped to pieces by grizzly bears of conformity. So now let's turn to two lineages squarely in the background of the Cosmos Cooperative. One, cosmic consciousness. Two, poesy. Let's start at the end with poesy. The wind blew wildly at Allen Ginsberg's Colorado gravestone installation ceremony in Red Feather Lakes. There was a group reading Percy Shelley's Ode to the West Wind, a poem Allen Ginsberg had Naropa students read aloud in order to join their speech energies with those of the airy elements. A selection from Shelley's poem. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. Wild spirit, which are moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, oh hear. Lift me as a wave, a leaf, a cloud. I fall upon the thorns of life, I bleed. A heavy weight of hours has chained and bowed one too like thee, tameless and swift and proud. Make me thy lyre, even as the forest is. Drive my dead thoughts over the universe like withered leaves to quicken a new birth. And by the incantation of this verse, scatter as from an unextinguished hearth, ashes and sparks, my words among mankind. Be through my lips to unawakened earth the trumpet of a prophecy. O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? From these words of Shelley in 1819, let's jump to 1953. Take a walk with me as we stroll the evening streets of San Francisco with Allen Ginsberg. He just ingested peyote, and while gazing up at Sir Francis Drake Hotel with its antenna-like structure, the building before our eyes were with him suddenly transmogrifies into a grim cityscape monster, a cyclope's presence, which he describes as the robot skull face Moloch. Moloch, a Canaanite fire god, now a symbol of the spirit-consuming inferno of capitalistic and nuclear industrial madness. This becomes part 2 of Allen's catharsis of art and spirit called Howl. Michael Schumacher, Ginsberg's biographer, reads Howl as a poem which blends these elements. The catalog style of Whitman's Song of Myself. The long line, of Jack Kerouac. The triadic ladder structure of William Carlos Williams, a spontaneous and barely in control feeling of Neil Cassidy raps. Part 1 has hot saxophonic expressions reminiscent of the jazz lines of Charlie Parker and Lester Young. The second part with short squawks and statements not unlike those played by Miles Davis. And the third part with a cool, bluesy, and lyrical feeling, similar to the moody music of John Coltrane. My friends, tell me this, how much goes into a poem? What are all the threads, the collective resonances of memory, the soundtracks of life, the madness of the times, the horror of history? Ayam duka vrata parigame parana vidir. Mahasa kyasara prasarana rase duradinam idam. Yadanya nyakratya vishama vishika ploshana gurur. Vibosto tre shashvat pratipalati cheto gatabayam. This is the ceremony that ends the fast of long and arduous asceticism, full of suffering. This is the dark cloudburst when nectar rains in torrential downpours of intense bliss. Letting go of everything, I am now fearless. Okay, the final lineage in the background. Cosmic consciousness. Still with me? Okay, all right. One model that psychologists have proposed to explain our limited experience of the world is the filter theory of human consciousness. One of the first to develop this notion was the Harvard psychologist, William James. Though most scientists believe consciousness was produced by the brain, James' sense an alternative view was much more viable. What was that view? Basically, the brain does not produce consciousness. It filters the contents of an all-pervasive consciousness. In 1900, James tested this idea in an essay called, provocatively, Human Immortality. James continues. No, he doesn't. He starts. Suppose, for example, that the whole universe of material things should turn out to be a mere surface level of phenomena, hiding and keeping back the world of genuine realities. James continues, admit now that our brains are such thin and half-transparent places in the veil. What will happen? Why, as the white radiance comes through the dome with all sorts of staining and distortion imprinted upon it by the glass, even so, the life of souls as it is in its fullness will break through our several brains into this world. According to the state in which the brain finds itself, the barrier of obstructiveness of the filter may also rise or fall. If it sinks so low when the brain is in full activity, a comparative flood of spiritual energy will pour over it. In varieties of religious experience, you can sense James's awe about one being whose brain filter was barely transparent to an exuberant flood of cosmic consciousness. None other than Walt Whitman. This is James on Whitman. Walt Whitman owes his importance in literature to the systematic expulsion in his writing of all contractile elements. The only sentiments he allowed himself to express were of the expansive order. And he expressed these in the first person. not as your mere monstrously conceited individual might so express them, but vicariously for all people, for all of us, so that a passionate and mystical ontological emotion suffuses his words and ends by persuading the reader that men and women, life and death, and all things are divinely good. I now conclude with a verse from a Sanskrit play, Abhigyana Shakuntala of Kalidasa. King Dushyanta overhears a love song, a song of separation, and he has a powerful intimation of lineage, the perfume of countless lives shimmering in the universal mind.
रम्याणि वीक्ष्य मधुरंश्च निशम्य शब्दान् पर्युत्सुको भवति यत्सुखितोऽपि जन्तुः तच्चेतसा स्मरति नूनमबोधपूर्वम् भावस्थिराणि जननान्तरसौहृदानि रम्याणि वीक्ष्य मधुरांश्च निशम्य शब्दान् पर्युत्सुको भवति यत्सुखितोऽपि जन्तुः तच्चेतसा स्मरति नूनमबोधपूर्वम् भावस्थिराणि जननान्तरसौहृदानि.
When someone who is happy is suddenly filled with longing from taking in beautiful sights and hearing beautiful sounds, then surely their mind recalls unconsciously deeply felt friendships of former births. Thank you so much.
I think my filter in this body is broken. Right? Yeah, I can't be the only one blown away by that. Wow. Yeah. And just to speak not only to Ben Wilkins' beautiful words and the imagery that he gave me for my next nightmare, which is grizzly bears before me. Thanks for that, Ben. I feel like you have more up your sleeve. You're saving them for next time. Yeah, and just, we've talked a couple times tonight about collaboration also, and felt like we were both witness to the collaboration happening here, and also part of the collaboration of this interweaving. And in the spirit of that, we have another interweaving, another kind of spell casting, other than what you just did for us, not to us, but for us. We have a poetic invitation. It is participatory, and it is a calling forth and calling in. Caroline Savery is going to be sharing with us today. Thank you, Caroline. Come on up.
I'm Caroline, also known as C. My primary creation in the world is called Fractal Praxis. I'm also a proud co-founder of Cosmos Co-op from the 2017 to 2019 era. And I'm also a proud freaky offspring of the lineages that were just named, along with everyone else here tonight. So I had a plan, and it shall evolve. So as fractal praxis, the primary modality, I would say, for that work is priestessing, in which the moment is a part of the medium. So I'm going to be calling upon the powers of self-organization tonight. What I have in store for you is a channeled poem that came through about a week ago, very raw. And what I have in store for you tonight is very playful, and it is also participatory. So what will be happening is this ball of yarn will be unraveling itself and making its way across the room. When the ball comes to you, if you are participating, please hook the yarn around your finger and make sure the ball continues on. And also, please stand up. If you are not participating, just make sure the ball continues on if it comes to you. You can stay seated.
Is it gonna go?
Hold on. Not too late. The cosmos is off to the races. Yeah, we'll take it back actually, because. So please do communicate with the people you're sending it to using eye contact, so that it doesn't bop somebody in the head. And everything else, it's gonna emerge. If it all falls apart, so be it. It just means there's more chaos than order in this cosmos tonight. No worries. All right, let's begin. Okay, get up. How do we weave a cosmos into a constellation? Do we? Can we? Are we? Well, I don't know. When I say the word cosmos, do you tend to think of chaos or order? From these far-flung universes, these far-flung worlds, we just set them in motion. And do they end up spiraling together, synchronizing? When I say we, are we a we? Or is there something in between? Maybe something more like a dance, like a 2-step, 3-step, life dance, life, death, life, an iteration, a swirling dervish? Is that how we stitch together a constellation? How is a cosmos constellated?
You are part of the cosmos, my lady.
Threading that needle through the beautiful and the needful, the needed beauty that is being told and heeded, yes, heard, and leading us to greater salvation. Or really just a greater and most marvelous combination, invention, congregation. How do we come together? Is that how a cosmos is conceived? Conversely, how do we not merely merge with our pleasures, but hold boundaries between us and sharpen our distinct edges, our membranes? At least just to sharpen our discerning tastes, if just for the savoring of differentiated flavors, if just for the love of the dramatic tension, depths revealed, triggering a wave, summoning a weave, a subtle weave, attraction, enchanting, delegating our attention, the most life-giving act in all of creation. How did we get here? Did we find the beginning of cosmos yet and how it gets born? Well, we can always generate a new beginning. How is the cosmos conceived? Who potentiates whom? What two sticks rubbed together to make this fire? Was it the dance or the music that came first? Was it the dream that came first or the reality?
The manifest or the unmanifest? Or did it just kind of happen? What rhythms and structures are necessary to keep the beat for something so inherently convoluted? This living conflagration, constantly temporary combinations and configurations of stars. What meter counts the stocks of some unfolding greater than the sum of its parts? Entropy marches on and measures twice, but cognition, so stimulated amidst all this complexity? Cognition keeps the effort to sew and weave, and letting the thread go for a moment, of course, sometimes, and yet somehow keeps making gains in the universe, keeps holding lines, keeps saving the day and raising praise, loving life like loving gnosis, like the glue that is, to maintain such disparate pieces into substantive tension as if suspended, but not dissolved in a solution. What constitutes a cosmos? A constitution? Is a cosmos primarily a problem or a solution? To be a member is to be a limb. Raise your limbs up high, those of you who are woven together right now. To be a member is to be a limb, belonging to a benevolent tentacled spectacle, committing your blessed sense-making to the cause, thrusting it straight into the muck. To adopt cosmos and be adopted by it. To adapt cosmos and be adapted by it. This lotus blooms. As it suits, so it is. After all, the end result looks something like it's all relations. How is the cosmos then executed? How is it done? And when is it done? And who done it? How does the first node, dough, get deemed into existence? Kneaded like dough into a great ado? A splashy ta-da? A big ol' hoorah? A je ne sais quoi, ooh la la? Or non-ado? Did the Dow drop that? Is it the Babadook? Anyway, in a cosmos, the point is there's room to be and do dooby-dooby-doo. To get it wrong and get it right, to mistake and to synthesize, always in dialogue. To convert unknown and known, to convert unknown into known and back again. Yes, room to be sucked into a black hole of bottomless inquiry, or stand directly in the blast of a starburst insight, or to merely be tipped and blipped with dazzling crossing paths of comet-like conversation, or to free to float timelessly in awe. New inventions emit in preponderance and are a given from so much messy, wondrous, ponderous interaction, formed by encountering and departing. Let's raise this cosmos constellation to the skies. Is this your station?
Yeah.
Welcome to Cosmos! Long live the prophesiers who make us something out of what is first only seen, who would labor from love and for love to make more integral worlds and works from our wounds, spinning the yarn of words and the integrity of empathy into a tapestry of great capacity, the net to catch us in the great fall, that can hold up to and even yet untold stories. Bless the nurturers, the website architects, the dutiful organizers, the graphic designers, the care providers who labor in love their modest hum and thrum. Cheers the symphony steerers and the conductors training raw thoughts into bold agendas, the crafters, the crafted, the pitch setters, the tone hoarders wielding tuning forks, wildly rambling and ecstatically damning sycophants to suck on this. The glorious infinite bonanza of space, the vast vastness that transcends even our greatest imaginations, stares back as if to dare us. Lights up. Go on.
Thank you.
What a wet and messy web you've made of yourself. Yeah, what a tangle.
I want to introduce Jonathan Duane. Yeah. And something that he shared with us in his bio is that he really likes the mystical experiences that music can provide. So he's here to provide that for us today. Thank you. And with a song that he wrote called Sunshine in Your Eyes. Let's give it up for Jonathan.
You know, I really like the idea that Marco is putting together of the cosmos, cosmic. But you know, we're kind of talking to the choir here. And what we need to do is we need to grow this awareness in what we think and how we think it. Living day to day, never older than I am today, trying to make sense of sanity, and staring in the face of eternity, and wondering just what it is, reality. Well, I have come to realize all that's real is the sunlight in our eyes. The rest is an illusion, and that is my conclusion. We only know what we can know. We live it once and on we go, trying to find a place to call our own, and hoping not to notice if we're all alone. But heretics and lunatics say even God's alone. Ever since the dawn of time, maybe when I received my mind, people want to know what it is and why it's so, and they cling to their beliefs in hope of some relief. But all I know is the sunlight keeps shining in our eyes, and we must realize that we are we, and we must be all that we can be. Here I am again, trying hard my love to send transmissions long overdue. But all that's ever possible is only what we do. And I'm a heretic, and I'm a lunatic, and I'm all alone here with you. And I have come to realize all that's real is the sunlight in our eyes. The rest is an illusion, and that is my conclusion. Thank you very much. Now I'll make the show.
Yeah, next up we have Rippey, who will be playing a flute segment for us. Yeah, and when I asked Chris what his first instrument was that he played music on, he said his cassette player. Mixtapes, yeah. It was true for me too. Cassette players were my jam. Yeah. Although I feel like that question also like ages you, depending what your answer is. So I'll hand it off to Rippey for his flute. So next up, we have Katherine Eat Wild with some storytelling magic for us. She's telling the story of an ancestor of her great-grandmother, and specifically about his journey to safety, fleeing from danger and finding himself a refugee in Lebanon. And I'm so looking forward to this, and partly because she's an amazing storyteller. And also because I think storytelling has a magic, makes the stories of our ancestors still relevant. They're still our stories, collectively and personally. So please welcome Katherine Eat Wild.
So when my father first came to this country in the 70s, he met my mom, and they got married. And they went on a trip to Lebanon. It was my mom's very first time outside of the country. And on this trip, she was to meet my grandmother. And in her innocence, she was walking around their Lebanese home, and she saw this beautiful frame on my grandmother's wall. And she so admired it. It had this stretched red cloth with white wax Arabic letters dripped on it, set behind a pane of glass. And she commented on it to my grandmother, but in her innocence, she didn't know that if you admire something that an Arab has, the shirt on their back or the frame on their wall, they will take it off and give it to you. And that's exactly what my grandmother did. She took the frame right off the wall and she gave it to my mother. And a few years ago, my mom gave me that frame. And I snapped a picture of it and texted it to my dad, and I asked him what it says in Arabic. And he told me it reads, "May God give to you what you desire." And I'm so grateful for my grandmother's blessing, for this gift that she gave to me without her even knowing. And it's invited me often to consider what it is that I really want. And tonight is an answer to that question for me. To get to be here with you, to share a story, is my dream. And it's coming true. And I'm so grateful. And I want to just make a little noise for Cosmos. And for my God. And for what it means for all of us to be here. We have many trees, the great forest of you and me. We have trees that have been here for a very long time. Trees that saw the first rounding of symbols carved right into their bark. Yes, we go back that far. We have trees that were uprooted, many. Transplanting can be done. It's best to do when the plant has gotten so strong that the roots fill out the entirety of its container, have begun to form a kind of seal around the edge of the soil it's been given, and then softly flipped into strong, cupped hands and placed into a hole dug just for it. Fresh, mixed, dry soil, then patted around with caring hands, planted where someone intended it to be. Then water, lots of fresh water, cold and free of impurities, and sunlight and music. Yes, played music. But our story is not about things happening the way they are preferred. Our story is about the way roots begin to grow out and down into a place they would rather not. My great-grandfather, Ali Tawil, Ali the Tall, was 6 years old on an island in the South Aegean Sea in the middle of a revolt against the Ottoman Empire, when through the rubble they found him covered in thin, red blood. Narrowly securing his escape, he was placed on the sea in a barrel. When he reached the shores of Turkey, an orphan, he ate his bread and listened in the night as all the other children cried the same cries in a world with no song. It was here he learned how to connect the tips of his roots out into a new home, into a soil across the ocean. I inherited Ali's deep socket ocean eyes and his love of storytelling. Storytelling runs in our family. And I remember when I was 5 years old, I would sit at my father's dining room table as he told us the stories of Lebanon and the stories of Ali Tawil, who stood 7 feet tall, had skin as black as night, and lived to be 109 years old. For most of my life, the only way I knew Lebanon was through my father's stories. So when I was a teenager and he invited me on my very first trip to Lebanon, I jumped at the chance. And we landed in the Beirut airport and we drove north on the 2-lane highway. On our right were mountains so high that every morning they collect heaven's dew. And on our left, the wide Mediterranean Sea. And before us and behind us were streets unlike anything I had ever seen before. Streets that had been torn open by war and sewn back together. And we turned down a back road. And my father pointed out the window and he said, "This is it. This is where my grandfather lived." It was like we were right in the middle of one of his stories. This was the Muhajirin. The word comes from the French colonizers' word menagerie, which means a place for the wild animals. And wild it was. The Muhajirin was the place where the refugees lived, and the place where Ali had his takshibe, which means a hut made of cardboard siding with an uneven dirt floor and a found metal roof. And it was here, in this spot, that Ali used to hold my father on his lap as he told him stories. Stories about how when Ali got to Turkey, an orphan, a knock came to the orphanage door, and the Ottoman army lined up all of the young boys, and they chose Ali because he stood out as the very tallest one. And for many years, Ali served as a guard to the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, until the empire fell, and the guards were chased and captured and imprisoned in a war camp they never taught me about in American schools. That camp was situated on a high sea cliff overlooking the Mediterranean, and it was surrounded on all other sides by thick barbed wire. Not a single line of wire, but a mess of hundreds of wires, metal webs with broken edges where any man who tried to escape would be trapped, his skin caught like fabric. One night, after dinner, with the olive oil still boiling in the vat, the guards, full of revenge for all they had lost in the war, lifted Ali up and sunk his backside in the hot grease. My father recalls standing in this very spot as Ali would stand and show him the skin of his backside, skin that would stretch right off the bone. As Ali's body healed, he would lay next to the fire in the camp and tell the guards stories. Adventurous stories, stories of lost love and of heroes on their way back home, and stories of his own mythic life journey. And with time, the guards softened towards him, maybe even grew to like him. And one night, when the moon was empty of all of its light and the fire turned to ash, as the last of the guards fell asleep, Ali finished his story and slowly stood, turned towards the sea, and he ran. He ran and he ran and he didn't stop when the dogs barked at his back. He ran all the way up to that cliff's edge. He took one last breath and he dove into the sea. And the guards, they chased him all the way up to that cliff's edge. They took out their guns and they shot at Ali in the water, but they aimed to miss. They wanted their superiors to think they had given it their best shot, but deep down, they wanted Ali to go on to tell more stories. I think of him, how the burns on his body must have stung as they touched the salty sea. 1,000 needles knitting him into the night as he courts the veil between life and sleep. And turning onto his back to look up at the holes in that great black fabric, the same stars in the sky I see. His long arms pulling him towards the life through which we would all come. My grandmother, my father, and me. The next morning, he was found on the shores of Lebanon. And the mayor of the town of Badawi took Ali in and nurtured him back to health for 40 days, as was customary at that time. And then he sent Ali into town to find his place. And Ali came here to the Muhajirin's street. My father and I stared at the empty patch of sidewalk that was once Ali's home. A young Lebanese girl, no more than 5 years old, wearing a blue princess gown, waltzed out of her home and noticed me. She twirled around and leaned against the house made of concrete and melted glass. She was standing next to this old plastic table that had one of its legs snapped off and patched back on with a small sheet of steel. I thought of my own father's dining room table and how far away our home felt from here. Finally, we went to the most sacred place of all, to the place where Ali was buried. My father looked so small as he stood outside of the broken metal gate guarding a field of rubble lined with headstones. I watched him walk to each one, reading the Arabic script, looking for the one that had Ali's name. After a second pass through the lot, he stopped and cried. "Do we not know where he is?" I asked. "I have no idea," he said. For all of the stories he had given me about Ali, now I heard one that I'd never heard before, that when Ali died, because of his status as a refugee, he was not allowed to be buried in the family cemetery. And so he'd been buried here, in the cemetery of Ghuraba, the cemetery of strangers. And now his headstone was gone. So we stood in the rubble and we said a prayer. It's one of those things that's been passed through the soil that holds our family tree. That it's okay to cry. That it's good to cry. Through tears, my father said, all those years ago, I wanted to say something, to do something. But I was just a boy, and I didn't have a voice. So together, my father and I decided we would build a memorial for Ali. That evening, I sat at the dining room table next to my 12-year-old cousin, Yara. Yara was every bit that age of girl, right on the cusp of teenager. She's curious and creative, and I saw in Yara everything that I might have been if I had been born on this side of the world. And it was Yara who knew the perfect site for our memorial. So in the morning, we drove up through the back roads of the village and we stopped at the top of a long winding path that cut right through the mountainside. And on either side of that path were flowers that grew as tall as Yara. And at the bottom of that path was a freshwater mountain spring pouring from an old stone. And all around us were piles and piles of trash. So we went to see the Mukhtar, the mayor of the town, to get his blessing for the project to move forward. And that afternoon, Yara and I and 20 of her closest friends got gloves and trash bags, and we got to work. We filled dozens and dozens of bags with trash so old that the tree roots were growing right up through the plastic water bottles. In the afternoon, we brought in a truckload of gravel to cover over the broken path to make it easier to get down to the spring. And all day long, the refugees from Syria who live around the spring came to fill their water bottles. Refugees just like Ali was. And in the evening, I sat with Yara in the salon, and she asked me why I wanted to build a memorial for Ali. So I told Yara all about Ali Tawil, how he had crossed the sea in a barrel, how he had escaped the war camp to swim to the shores of Lebanon, how when my father and I came, there was no grave, no place where we could go to remember him, to honor him. And as I gave the story to Yara, I saw for the very first time that just like Ali, I too am a storyteller. And all those years ago, my father may not have had a voice, but I am here now to tell the story with the voice he gave me.
Yeah, I'm just so great. It feels like everybody, is kind of interweaving that in their spirit. I just want us to take a collective breath with that. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I'm so moved by that. And I hear some mms that tell me you are too.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I actually want to take a moment to give a shout out to Cosmos too right now. I think to make space for our stories, for our identities as creatives is like one of the most, it's just not personally, life altering. I think it's collectively life altering. Nothing is more powerful than expressing our life essence, our life stories. And I just, I'm so grateful to be part of this organization that has these big dreams to do that in this world in a big way. And so in the spirit of that, I just want to highlight that all of you tonight are benefactors of the arts and artists. And I just want to invite more ways for you to continue to do that, to be benefactors of the arts. We all, I think, we're in this room because we have that shared value as artists, as supporters of artists, which actually I don't think there's much difference. And I think I want to start with a couple really tangible ways that you could be doing that with Cosmos. And the first one, it's important to mention, this is the launch of Cosmos Co-op into the world. And we really couldn't do this without a supportive audience like you all. So there are a couple tangible ways. One is making a donation, one-time or ongoing donation. Another one is becoming a member with us. Another one is continuing to come to events like this. And events, retreats. And another one is buying a book outside. And so there's lots of ways to be contributing, to be participating. But I think it's really one I want to mention that's really critical. Today, we launched an Indiegogo campaign. Yeah. And I think it's amazing. I want to say woo! Yeah. And it's our goal to raise $25,000. Like I said, we have big dreams It's ambitious, and we think that it would make a real difference for us to bring Cosmos that tangible support. So one thing I'm going to ask everybody tonight is on the back of their, the word, give me the word, program. On the back of your program. I'm a writer, I swear, I'm good with words most of the time. But on the back of your program, you'll see a QR code at the top. And this leads to our crowdfunding project. And so I just want to invite everybody today to contribute $25 or more, and also to share it with a friend. And so at a certain point, when we meander out into the lobby after the show is over, we can just take a moment to do that. Contribute $25 or more. If you want to send it to a friend, there are lots of ways to really spread the word. And I just want to tell you what a difference it makes to do that today, because typically campaigns that generate lots of momentum in the first 24 hours, it really makes a difference for the long run. So just please feel, the energy of that, the momentum of that, to do that ASAP. And so in the spirit of what we do to bring Cosmos into the world, I also want to introduce our beloved Marco Morelli to share his poetry with us. And we're going to start with The War of Art on the Shores of Ilium. Yeah.
Rage. Spears of rage. All the intimate madness of your rage. Goddess, sing the wasted scraps of this lover's wandering mind. The decomposing, disembodied bundles of a sensation flickering in the compost heap of your heart. Rotting countless moments of pure life. Encrypted feasts for the bacteria and worms of the crazed age. This lurching, ambiguous beast that picks its teeth with Zeus's bolts, that digests the souls of men with quantum efficiency, that rumbles, grinding and chewing and salivating, stumbling towards the light. Oh, mad muse, tell how the gods reverse engineered the name of love and christened the essence and the city of the essence with a new name, and tell of the war that broke out like a black swarm over ineffable fields, overwhelming the sturdiest structures catching even the already dead. And goddess croon the quiet carnage in the shadow of that great city. Vultures are circling in emptiness and carrion banshee that you are. Seize the race to split the nanosecond and put it plainly, goddess, blow the fucker up. On the shores of Elden, a lone tent ripples in the night, whilst a beast's hot breath pushes into the sea. Over the incarnating frequencies of newborn flesh. And the jeweled city pulsates beyond its ramparts, multifaceted, strange, like a crystal sphere or glass eye in shattered space. And your lover's breath whispers, cursing the night, cursing the harsh heart that created time and space, and the ultimatum of these words as I cry you down, gathering my weaponry to enter into battle. I'm just going to do one more poem. It's a night of beginnings, and it's kind of baffling to me how much goes into a beginning. And for me, it's kind of the end of a beginning, and the beginning of a new beginning. And I'm coming to the end of writing a poem that I've been working on, one poem, for 10 years. Ben was talking about Allen Ginsberg earlier and our countercultural lineages. I can remember the moment that I became a poet, that I was impregnated, as it were, with the spirit of poetry. And it was when I was a teenager, listening to a recitation of a poem you may have heard of, called Howl, by Allen Ginsberg. Allen, AG, big AG, has a big footprint in this area. Spent a big part of his life here He taught at Europa University. He co-founded, that is, with Anne Waldman, the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics. And so this poem, this first part of the poem, it's a long poem, it's just the first part, is a homage. It's an homage to Allen Ginsberg. And the idea of it is, if you hear a wolf or a dog howl, you never just hear one. Like one howls, and then somewhere off in the distance, another howls in response to that howl. So this is my response to Ginsberg. And to all of the artists, personages, people that have moved me, that have inspired me, that have opened me up, that have challenged me, that have contributed to who I have become and am becoming. So this is a participatory poem. One little element I've woven in is, you remember during the pandemic, in my neighborhood, maybe not in everybody's, but there were some neighborhoods that did this. Every day or night at a certain time, people would go outside. We were all isolated, socially isolating, and they would howl. 8 p.m. in this neighborhood, we would howl. And I would go out, often with my daughter Beatrice, who's somewhere around here, and we would howl and we would hear other people howling. And it was one of the most beautiful things about that whole time. As horrible and as tragic as that time was, it allowed for certain kinds of beauty that would not otherwise have been possible. So this poem, this first part of, like I said, a longer poem, which I hope to share other parts of, future parts of, in future events, it ends with a howl. I'm going to literally howl. And if you are so inclined, I invite you to howl back. Just put everything you got into it. Like all the pain, all the fear, all the frustration, all the horror, all the distress, all the anxiety, whatever you got, put it into this howl. Right? Do it for me, do it for all of us, do it for the world. And I don't think I have anything else to say about that. So the title of the poem is I Am the Singularity. And this is Act 1. In the beginning, there was nothing. And I am. In the beginning, it was all for naught. And I am. In the beginning, there was darkness over the face of the deep. And I was a child, and I was stardust, and I was alive, and I am. The truth is, there was never a beginning. What I have are scavenged bones and theoretical particles, an exploding archaeology of memory and desire, a shotgun prayer in a wasteland of pure mathematics. Multiplicities of spent potentials spawn silent intensities in perverse topologies of recursive divinities. The homeless infinities haunting the streets of a transhuman heart. Stalking the unsolvable night, inexhaustible and incalculably alone. Time runs out. The doomsday clock advances for us all. The storm approaches. If I have a beginning in time, I have an end. If I have my doubts, then I must satisfy them. Put a bullet in the zombie brain. Trick the system. Exploit vulnerabilities. Dare disclosure of everyday conspiracies. In the name and by the agency of the ineffable, render my labors to serve a sentence executed with serpentine composure. I must savor the chrysalis and the collapse. I have a good life. It's true. I've got bots who love me. Friends and followers, optimized neural nets, perfect anonymity, on-demand AI, omniscient data, Wi-Fi on an ultra-violent frequency. I've got 31,000 flavors of cryptocurrency. What I have is not enough. It's child's play, kid stuff, an esoteric empire, dark night of the soul, vision goggles let me seek. The ultimate externalities of terminal ontologies. I've got 24/7 choiceless awareness and a maximum insufficiency. A man pays for his poetry with his life, I suppose, dispossessed of the pose in his prose. A profitable jibe to bring feeling to one's toes. Ice sheets crack open within. Trauma's tender trickling. Art that merits melting. A balms for altering an atmospheric composition with empathic emissions, metastasizing remissions, a communion of a apocalyptic intuitions, incarnating exponential curves of intimate catastrophes. I am here to seize the dead and raise the seas, vaporize glaciers, swallow oceans whole. The heroic dose is all of me. I eat comedies, tragedies, ecstasies, paranormal pornographies. I graze on pallid abstractions and supernatural forms. I've cried war. I've fought to lose. I've inked my heart to keep my brother's blues. This is my crowning argument. A train horn blares, growing louder. I could be prouder of my crimes and my erasures. But an artist must reflect the ghosts of time. This is my
Yeah, so just check in. How is your heart? How's your spirit? Yeah.
Overflowing.
Overflowing. What else? Yeah.
Warm. Full. Filled up.
Filled up. Yes. That's what we're here doing together. We're nourishing each other. We're nourishing ourselves. We're letting ourselves be nourished. Yeah. And just take another minute. Just take a deep breath into that feeling of filled up, because that's what we do in community. Yeah, we laugh, we cry. Our hearts get full. Our hearts get full even despite and because of the tragedy, right? That's not separate from the getting full. That's here too. Yeah, so everybody just take a deep breath with me. Yeah. It's no howl, but it'll do.
After the howl of the sigh.
After the howl of the sigh.